always on standby. So the first thing that is done is for the...
As Nigerians, we must realize that government does not thrive based on what one man is doing at the seat of power.
If I had my way, I would say let's go back and bring back Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, it's another beautiful day, another great opportunity for us to look at issues related to business, finance, global affairs, and the economy. This is Early Exchange, and I am Femi Ayodele. As you know that Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development with our conversation. Today, we're going to start our conversation from the UAE, where we'll be looking at the cost of living. And we'll also look at the issue of Forex, the use of foreign currencies in Nigeria. It has been of concern to the Central Bank of Nigeria. We're going to look at that and the efforts being made by the Central Bank of Nigeria to address the issues of the crisis that has trailed this development. Don't forget, you can be part of this conversation. All you just have to do is to go on a social media platform, on a YouTube page, using the hashtag Early Exchange to hear your view. And like I always say, let your voice be heard. It's your program. We hope that as we spend the next 2 hours with us, will make your day worthwhile. Blessing is also here to add value to your time. Blessing, how are you today?
And well, Femi, and you're right about that, because we need to add value to a lot of persons. Now, some people made money in the last year and are thinking of where to invest. So we help point them in the right direction. And for those affected by global inflation, countries that have been hugely impacted, we will look at it today and see what prospect lies even in a country ridden by inflation. So this is some of the focus for today. We ask that you stay with us. By the way, how was your week? How was your weekend, rather? I do hope it was great. Now, to get you updated on current happenings, Grace Komalafe is standing by in the news studio to bring you news update. Hello, Grace.
Hello and welcome to News Update on Souq News. I am Grace Komalafe. As part of efforts to enhance operational efficiency in the banking sector, Nigeria's Upper Bank, the Central Bank of Nigeria, has halted its cash reserve requirement policy. In a letter to all banks, the new framework discontinues daily CRR debits, offering a more predictable mechanism for improved liquidity management. Instead of daily deductions, the bank introduces a two-phase approach, an incremental method that applies existing ratios to increase in weekly average adjusted deposits, and a lending incentive imposing a 50% CRR levy on banks failing to meet the minimum loan to deposit ratio. This aims to encourage increased lending to the real sector. The adjustment reflects the bank's dedication to maintaining monetary stability while encouraging economic expansion, as well as facilitate banks' financial planning, while encouraging increased lending stimulates economic activities. Moving on, International Breweries PLC has released its unaudited results for 2023, revealing a pre-tax loss of 87.64 billion naira, marking a significant 226% decline from the 26.84 billion naira loss before tax in 2022. The company faced challenges linked to the naira devaluation, resulting in a net foreign exchange loss of 72.47 billion naira in 2023, a sharp 437.6% decline from the 30.47 billion naira net FX loss in 2022. Key highlights for the year 2023 includes a gross profit of 53.06 billion naira, an operating loss of negative 68.24 billion naira, and a total comprehensive income for the period of 70.25 billion naira. Notably, total assets increased to 733.11 billion naira, reflecting a 51% growth. The interest expense on borrowing surged to 24.75 billion naira in 2023, a 247% increase, while the company utilized non-deliverable forward contracts to mitigate exchange rate fluctuations on the outstanding loan balance of $389.08 million with Citibank. Away from that, Guinea's National Transition Council has approved a partnership involving Rio Tinto PLC, the China-backed winning consortium Simandou, and the government for the development of the world's largest untapped iron oil reserve. According to the spokesperson for the council, Mori Dono, this parliamentary-like council confirmed its endorsement for the Simandou project, aiming to complete the construction of a mine, rail line and port by December 2025. Initial oil production is scheduled for 2026 with plans for a steel factory and pellet plant in the 2030s. This initiative aligns with Rio Tinto's substantial $6.2 billion investment in the iron ore project, part of a broader $30 billion investment plan for 2025. And again, the Canadian government has extended its ban on foreign ownership of residential properties by 2 years, pushing the expiration date from January 1, 2025 to January 1, 2027. This policy adjustment is part of a broader strategy to address housing affordability concerns with escalating prices in both urban and rural markets across the country. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland stressed government's commitment to making housing more accessible to Canadians and highlighted the role of foreign ownership in housing scarcity and inflating prices. Canada also implemented a 2-year cap on international student permits and halted work permits for some post-graduation students to manage the influx of newcomers contributing to the housing crisis. And lastly, Namibia, a country with a GDP of over $26 billion, known for its significant diamond deposit and lithium reserves used for electric car battery, has lost its president, Gembo Gob, aged 82, yesterday, succumbing to cancer weeks after his diagnosis. Gengob, a prominent figure since pre-independence, led this sparsely populated Southern African country since 2015. His death was announced by the presidency via a social media post earlier yesterday. This comes weeks after his cancer diagnosis, disclosed last month after a medical checkup. Gengob, in office since 2015, had previously survived prostate cancer. Until his death, President was a prominent figure in the struggle for independence for apartheid era South Africa, who later became the country's first prime minister and a long-serving head of state. And that's the news this morning. We return to Blessed Nature and Femi Ayodele for more on Early Exchange. Many thanks for watching. I am Grace Komolafe. Have a great morning.
All right, thank you, Grace, for keeping us informed with the news update. Indeed, you took us around the world. And now we want to look at the latest development as regards the city of Dubai. When it comes to all the cities in UAE, Dubai is being estimated to be the most expensive. When it comes to tourism, that city comes to your mind. And for those of you who are thinking of leaving the country in the wake of this Japa syndrome, if you're thinking of going to Dubai, then the cost of living in Dubai should be of concern to you. That will be the thrust of our conversation today. And to shed more light on this, we're being joined by in-house analysts. We have Dr. Idauza Osamanzi here with us this morning. Glad to know you're here with us. Good morning. How was your weekend?
Good morning, Femi. There was no weekend. Leslie, good morning.
Why was there no weekend?
Too much of activity. It was it was a work weekend.
Okay.
You know, our job is more of 24/7, and so we work virtually around the clock.
I was, when you said there was no weekend, I was beginning to wonder, since when did Saturday, Sunday leave the calendar and then we just jump from Friday to Monday? But now I understand.
Yes.
All right.
Difference.
Let's take our conversation to UAE. I want to take you from Nigeria now. Interestingly, why you are very critical to this discussion is because you've been to UAE, you've been to Dubai precisely. You've lived there for a while. You've had business concerns and several activities going on there for you. Now, the cost of living in Dubai, according to this report, has been of concern. You know, it has been the haven when it comes to tourism. The city has been in the world map in recent time because of the activities around tourism and then the vision of the leader. But it's also posing another challenge, which is the cost of living in that city. Give us an overview of your own personal experience having lived in that city, and what would be your own estimation before I give you the figures about the cost of living.
Well, I think UAE generally is home to a lot of people across the globe. Over 190 countries patronizes that environment. So people come from everywhere to do business in the UAE, and that's because the government made a kind of an ecosystem that's conducive for business. We've said here over and over, it's a tax haven for a lot of people because there's no corporate tax in the UAE. There's no even personal income tax in the UAE. So people who work, they take their salary full time. If you do business, you take your profit and you can move it anytime out of UAE without issues. So a lot of business people go to the UAE to do business. And this is because UAE is a commercial center. It's not an industrial center, so to speak, where almost everything that you get in the UAE is brought in, from chicken to fruits to vehicles. Is just like, you know, a shipping hub for the whole of Africa and the Middle East. So a lot of things come in here. And the UAE has a way of also negotiating with corporate owners in terms of pricing and the rest of it. But you see, what we're talking about today is that as the logistics challenge hits the world, the effect is directly and straight to those economies that are dependent on imports. So with over 1,000 degree increment in the prices of goods in the last 2 years. So as the global crisis are thriving, the prices on the ground also is going up. And the only thing that we are told that will not be affected is the real estate. But also find out that most of the real estate owners are also not indigenous. They're only partnering with the locals to build those houses. So as the cost of living is going up, cost of housing is also going up. And this is the challenge that a whole lot of people will face today as we speak in the United Arab Emirates.
Okay, now according to the report from the United Arab Emirates, now top causes of stress. Now this current cost of living rising has been put at 45% as the cost of stress for a lot of persons in the UAE. This stress is definitely going to be health issues for some if not managed very well. But let's look at the implication of the inflation rate in the UAE. As you have said already, it's like a commercial hub for Africa and the rest of the Middle East. So what's going to be the implication for people who come there to do purchasing to resell, particularly for some African countries? A lot of people who buy goods for textile do go to the UAE for shopping. What's going to happen?
Yeah, a lot is happening to that economy. Don't also forget that that's what point I'm making. Once there's a shock globally, every economy is affected. Now, the worst hit is always those that are almost 80 to 90% dependent on imports. Now, you look at it, for close to 2 years going now, the portal for Nigeria has not even been opened for people to travel from Nigeria to go to do business in the UAE. That has been sealed for a while. So a lot of people who have been coming from here to go and buy. Nigerians are big shoppers, and the UAE knows that. So there's no way it will not affect even the local making of money in terms of people who are selling, in terms of tourism and the rest of it. And that's what it is. People are struggling with business internally. And I think that's where the stress is actually coming from. Because you're having people, about a year ago, Russia, during the Ukrainian war, they all moved en masse to the UAE. And they brought in a lot of dollars into the economy. Now, by now, those dollars should have been exhausted. So you really need people to patronize. So it's one thing to have a goods on this and have somebody else who is going to buy it. Now, if you put the cost of ticket and the whole of it, the cost of visa together to get to the UAE, even from Nigeria, for example, is quite expensive. So not many people can afford it. Flying Emirates from the US to the UAE, all these prices are affecting the way businesses are done. Naturally, it would have been easy to spread the cost of the inflation if you have a whole lot of inflow of people coming, because the economy is dependent on those who visit, not on the residents. So this is the challenge. So there's no way people who live right there will not be mentally stressed if you don't have money to spend. And you're living in an environment that's so regulated that you have to pay every bill, whether to government or to landowners. So these are the things that, of course, will necessarily create mental stress for a lot of people that are living there. But how it will affect actually the Emiratis is another big question completely. Because over the years, these guys have established themselves, because you have an environment where out of the 10 million people that live in the UAE, about 8.5 million people are foreigners. Only 1.5 million people are original indigenous in the Emiratis, and they are well covered by the things they do. In the last 2 or 3 months, all the business partners we had in the UAE, they've been chasing us also, because the system is really stressed.
All right, let's situate this conversation properly by looking at the statistics. According to this report, a single person estimated monthly expenses, it's about $1,000, and that's about 3,700 dirhams, excluding rent, just for one person. And a family of 4 will spend 3 times more. That's about $3,540 monthly, which is equivalent to 13,000 dirhams. I want you to react to this. Do you find this to be very, just too expensive for an average dweller in that place to afford? $1,000 monthly, excluding rent for an individual. And if you look at a family of 4, it's about $3,540.
That's pretty expensive. $3,000, that's about 9,000 dirhams. And what do people earn? Maximum people who are working and they are doing excellently well, averagely 10,000 dirham per month. There are people who are earning less than 1,000 dirham. There are people who are earning 2,000-3,000 dirhams. So if you're earning 10,000 dirhams in the UAE, you're almost a middle class person. And then those who are very techy, they get up to 45,000 dirhams, but then that is on the extreme. So averagely, what a man is going to take home, if he's taking 10,000 dirhams in a month, and I'm going to spend
about
9,000 on food or transport, you know what that is?
Excluding rent.
Excluding rent,
Not
because
to talk of
rent is,
if you now convert this to naira,
quite expensive.
So you may even have some deficits.
Rent is quite expensive. Even in the slum area of UAE, like in Dera, rent as of 2022-23 is over 90,000 dirham per annum. That's about $30,000. Even our highbrow area in Ikoyi, you can't pay that much for a duplex. And that's for what we call a room self-contained here, 1-bedroom flat. So you can imagine that if you're living in a studio apartment around Dera area, that market area, that's like our Oshodi, you're seeing people paying up to about 35,000 dirham per annum. Some people paying 45,000 dirham per annum. That's huge money. And that's why even in those areas, you look at it in Dera area, you go toward Sharjah, you can see 12 people living in the same one studio apartment. Because the cost of affording this is very terrible. There are a lot of people who are underpaid in the UAE, especially people who are doing labor. They don't even earn up to $500 in a month. So you can imagine how these people survive, or how they are surviving.
So what would be the implication of this on the UAE economy? Those who don't earn as much to take care of the inflation cost and to also have something to hold on to, at least just to get by. Do you see possible relocation of a lot of residents or a lot of people who live in the UAE apart from the citizens themselves?
Where are they relocating to? Those in Nigeria are
maybe
crying.
Looking for somewhere cheaper to live in.
Angolas are crying. You see, this is one of the things that I say to so many people, especially with this Japa syndrome in Nigeria, that the cheapest place to live on the planet Earth is actually Nigeria. Many people don't understand it. They feel, oh, there's better opportunity anywhere. Where are you going to run to? You want to go to America? You want to go to Paris? You want to go to Germany? The cost of living is twice what we are talking about in the UAE. So it's not just about moving. The question is, where are you going to move to? That's the problem. That is not as affected as United Arab Emirates itself. You see, the beauty in the UAE is the fact that it will still be cheaper for a lot of people because it's still a tax haven. We are not adding corporate tax to the cost of things. So imagine that they were going to be putting tax on some of all these issues because they are still doing their VAT, which is 5%. So if it's only VAT that is put on the cost, it will still make the prices better than even within the GCC countries in the Middle East. So not really people living, is the ability of people to survive. And this put pressure on government facilities, especially the hospitals, where, of course, doctors will have to cope with the issue of depression. And you know, that's a very big challenge for every advanced economy. That once people start to think suicide and the things is putting burden and cost on the government. So these are the things that are going to be the likely fallout of what you are saying. Where are they going to go? Want to go back to India? Or you want the Lebanese to go back to Lebanon? They cannot. So they have to remain and find a way to cope with the stress. And that's why you see the world is trying to see how to create an economy that's all-inclusive, where everybody is catered for. But unfortunately, technology is creating that great divide that it's not possible for government to actually balance up life for people.
All right, let's go back to this report. There's a kind of comparison between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. The cost of living in Abu Dhabi, which is a bit lower than that of Dubai. You know, that of Abu Dhabi is about $900. So it's a bit lower. It's just like we're trying to compare Lagos, the cost of living in Lagos with Ogun State. It's just the reference here. Talk to us. Why do you think Dubai could be more expensive than Abu Dhabi? What are the sort of attractions, you know, to investors and to dwellers? What makes it so unique or different from that of Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, Dubai is the commercial nerve center. Just like taking Lagos, Abuja. And of course, also by way of the design, the way Abu Dhabi is designed, it's like, you know, a GRA setting. You don't have so many high rises in Abu Dhabi as you have in the UAE. So the real attraction is that a lot of people come to Dubai. And for you to live in Abu Dhabi, you must have been elite also. So I think that's actually the difference, because the migration comes more to Dubai, where the basic businesses are happening. And not many people can actually afford to go to the GRA, which is where the king is, and that's Abu Dhabi. So you still have suburbs within, and these are 7 other Emirates that are within the UAE, that people can still go to Ajman, people go to Sharjah, you know, all of Al-Sakima, all these areas are also places that are less developed, where cost of living also is down. And so many of our people are actually living on the outskirts of Dubai, because Dubai is expensive, because that's where you receive almost everybody who come to do tourism.
Okay, let's look at the other countries in the Middle East. Now, for Saudi Arabia, the cost of stress when it comes to current cost of living and the inflation is put at 47%, even higher than that of the United Arab Emirates. And then globally, it is still at 47%. This global inflation, what actually are the causes? And why is the impact on countries different?
Well, the impact has to be different, and of course that also have to be based on the macroeconomic phenomena across countries. People have different tax systems, monetary policies are different, and all these regulatory framework different across country. So that also will affect the impact of what is happening. You take, for example, if you take Africa as a case, where our leaders are struggling to look good to their creditors, which are other countries, and to prove to them that they can collect money from their people. Taxes are very high. And you also see rates of loans also on the rooftop. So you can imagine a country like Nigeria, where people have to borrow money and they have to pay up to 28%. Some people up to 31% to do business. Now, if you are taking that money and you are going to import something that is coming from maybe Russia, or coming from France, or coming from China, apart from the logistic you are going to pay for, you're also going to pay for the cost of capital. And then, of course, you also have to pay for the bad internal logistics that is in here. So this pushes the price high and raises the inflation rate within this kind of a climb. But you go to some places, taxes are well reduced, lending rate is single digits, some 5%, some 9%. In short, some places is actually -1. Because you have to encourage people to take loan so that the money in the banks can come into the society, especially with people who are facing deflationary trend.
And
like
also
in
business persons would like to know those places.
Yeah, like in Asia.
Where they encourage people to
Yeah,
take
but it
loans.
has their own, it also has their own negative. Because what it is that if you're doing business and nobody is buying from you really, what government is actually doing is trying to see how they can subsidize the cost of your capital and take some, it's just what we had called during the COVID period, the bailout. So it's a kind of a bailout mechanism. So that's the monetary policy of China at the moment, trying to see how to bail out businesses who are producing, but the demand is not corresponding to the supply. So this is an economic issue, problem, both for the state and for the companies themselves. But here, you're seeing COVID-19, the biggest culprit that spoiled the world. And it came unannounced, the whole world was shut down, and the greatest beneficiary of COVID-19 were shipping companies and ship owners. It's a record that the profit they never made, for some of them that have lived 50 years, some of them 100 years, since inception, they made that profit in a single COVID year. Because they determine where vessels are going to go through, they determine who got containers, and so the glut in the logistic supply chain became the real big problem. That whereas if you're taking a 40-foot container to Nigeria, you're paying $4,000 before. Immediately after the borders were open, after COVID, it became 12,000. So that marked increase in the cost of freight affected the costs everywhere across board. And now the world was trying to settle down. We got into the Ukrainian war. The prices of gas jumped to the high roof, creating trouble in the whole of Europe. So imagine that you're sourcing something from Europe. So the cost of energy rising, that affect the cost of production, and that automatically also affect the ex-factory costs of the product you're selling. So these are all issues. And we are thinking of ending the Ukrainian-Russian war, and we are having the Houthi rebels disturbing on the Red Sea, vessels can come. So the problem is compounded by the day, and that's why inflation is climbing, because as cost of production increases, and countries are printing money to accommodate these increments, you have so much money supply. With excess money supply, chasing very few goods, the net result is inflation.
All right, it's time for us to go on a break now. We'll be right back shortly to discuss more on the cost of living in UAE. Stay with us.
My name is Ron Gankechi Eze.
Charles Abana. My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep watching
Souq News TV.
The best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found this route in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the light different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need the same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to Souq News. You don't touch that dial.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Mase Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, Souq Enlightenment. Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Ida Hosa Osamans.
Still a deficit budget, we're still going to borrow as much as up to 7-9 trillion.
We have a 24-hour rescue team always on standby. So the first thing that is done is for the...
As Nigerians, we must realize that government does not thrive based on what one man is doing at the seat of power.
If I had my way, I would say let's go back and bring back Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, if you're just joining us, we have you covered. What a good time. And we're still looking at the cost of living in UAE, which has been of concerns to the residents. We still have in-house analyst with us, Dr. Idauza Samazi. Glad to know you're still here with us.
Where am I going? I'm tied to Blessing.
No, and Femi as well.
Your obligation on any extent is highly, commendable, and kudos for that.
So I don't have options.
Great. Now let's get back to our conversation. Let's look at the success story of UAE. It started with the vision of one man. What are the lessons for world leaders? What are the things they need to imbibe when you look at the success story of UAE? Within a decade, there's been a turnaround. What should be the lessons for world leaders, making reference to the success story of UAE?
Well, I think UAE was born by one man's idea, who saw tomorrow. Revenue was coming from oil, and they had independence, and they were fighting like every other place. And they said, why are we fighting ourselves? Let's come together and build a common society. And that's what translated into UAE today. And they have their independence in the 70s. And they've been making efforts to think outside of the box and build a society that is the talk of the town, really, so to speak, because you have over 20 million people visiting. tourism, just to see big projects. So it's a foresight. And the story of UAE, for me, what we can learn is that for every heart that is willing, nothing is impossible. Oh yes, because the real issue which we face here, the current ruler of Dubai was saying, oh, my father had a very big vision, and then he talked about how they decided to build and did everything. But one fundamental element, which is stressed, apart from the vision of the man, was the people who believed the vision. So it's not just enough to cast a vision. How do we mobilize people to believe or buy into the vision is the biggest issue in change management. And that's where our country, for example, had not been able to do well because we create too much suspicion. We have not been able to build trust across the divide so that people understand to say this is where we are going. And fundamental to every change management also is your ability to communicate your compelling vision. Now, most states cannot communicate their vision, but it's beautiful, but you cannot sell it to the people. And so you don't get buy-in. People who enlist into it. So, but they have a man here who sold a very compelling vision to the citizens, and the citizens accepted the vision, they bought into the vision, and everybody has been running with that vision. So that for me is what it is. Visionary leadership, transformatory leadership. Now, when you look at UAE, what you see is value for human beings. Stress-free life. You get to every bus stop because the sun is heavy. Every single bus stop in the UAE has an air condition inside it with sitting arrangements. So even when you are waiting for a bus to come, you are waiting for a train to come, there's a place you can sit, fully air conditioned, while you wait. Okay. Because you're thinking about the people. So that's what is important. And if you don't think people and you are thinking things, you cannot build civilization.
Thinking people and not things. All right, joining us in the conversation right now, we have Prince Frank Onene, who's in the United Arab Emirates, and so he'll be talking to us there, giving our situation report, how it is there. Good morning, sir. Welcome to Early Exchange. Please unmute your mic so we can hear you clearly.
Right.
Hello, Prince Frank.
Thank you very
Can
much
you
for
hear
the
me?
opportunity and for the time to share out.
So how are you doing this morning?
Doing wonderful. Beautiful weather out here in Dubai today.
So talk to us about the situation in Dubai, inflation. How much of impact is it having on the buyers and the sellers and businesses around?
Want to take that again?
Okay, so I just wanted to give us a situation report because you were there right now. How is it with businesses and even the residents purchasing and the businesses making sales in terms of patronage? How's inflation affecting the people there?
Well, thank you. Basically, Dubai is one good thing here is the ruler of Dubai part of the Emirates. It's giving us foreigners a very good platform to do business. So it's the doors are open to pretty much all nationalities or race. Yes, with the recent visa issues with some African countries, of course, Nigeria being one of them, has really affected businesses related to African descent, mostly Nigerians, because this is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Right, right. So it has taken a turn, a very negative turn to Nigerian related businesses in terms of travel. For those of us that have got business tied up to Africa and the rest of mostly West Africa, Nigeria mostly, we are feeling the pain, you could say. There's not that much traffic, much. So it's something that we, being old residents of this country, have been aligning with the leaders, the rulers, chamber of commerces to try to sort out whatever differences are there between both countries. But one good thing for us is being Nigerians, we're very resilient people. We don't just, for all business people here, we don't just depend just on the Nigerian market. We've extended our reach out to other regions to kind of make ends meet. But having said that, there has been a bit of a pinch in terms of business flow from Africa, mainly Nigeria. Real estate has been affected, pretty much tourism, hospitality, and for those of us that have got freight forwarding businesses have also been affected. And also with the recent currency situation, the Naira being devalued is also not helping matters. So we're pretty much struggling, you can say. But yeah, so that's the situation report for now. Hoping for the best.
Interesting. Prince, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange once again. Let me read out the statistics to you, and I would like you to react to it. Is either you confirm it or you refute it. According to this report, estimated monthly expenses for just an individual, it's about $1,000, and that's about 3,700 dirhams, excluding rent. And for a family of 4, you spend 3 times more, which is about $3,540 monthly, which is equivalent to 13,000 dirhams. I would like you to react to these, either confirm it or refute it, talking about the cost of living in Dubai.
Well, on that note, it all depends on lifestyle. Now, you can have, of course, that's a bit on the high side. Dubai is a very, very cosmopolitan, city, whereby the different lifestyles that you can have here. So it depends on what kind of lifestyle you want to live. They have attended to different levels of income. We have different sectors. We have different cities within the city. So you can adjust your lifestyle to however you want to do it. You want to be the party person every week, every day, then that's your call. You want to have a 1-bedroom where you can manage with your 2 kids, then that's also your call. But on the average, I think the latter seem to be a bit expensive. But yes, on the average, with 3,000, let's say 3,000 dirhams outside the rent, it's basic for a simple family that has got earning a salary of say 1,500 dirhams, which is about $1,500. That should be the average. So for the typical African, the typical Filipino, the typical Indian average income, I think that's it's a bit balanced. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
All right, let's look at what opportunities lie in here in spite of the inflation. Reports has it that investors, estate developers, real estate developers continue to join the UAE estate market, hoping for higher returns. Now, aside the real estate business, are there other businesses that this could be opportunity for or a good time for them?
Yes, there's a big opportunity, and thanks to COP28 and discussions going on green economy, of which we have a great potential to take advantage of that. The Dubai, UAE as a country is open to that. The Middle East is quite open to this, mainly because of their terrain. And, recently Sharjah has invested a lot in growing wheat. Now, for Nigeria, considering our dollar devaluation, we have a big advantage on our side in terms of our exports. We can look at the export market in terms of this market buys a lot of soya bean, a lot of sesame, there's cashew going to Vietnam through Dubai. So there's a lot that we can do to add value to this market. So at the end of the day, other than real estate, there's a lot of commercial transactions going on here. Dubai is now the hub. It's center for Asia, those in Europe. So every activity pretty much runs through Dubai, if I may say. Jebel Ali has provided a very good port, which is very efficient. There are other ports like Port Rashid, Hamria Port, one in Fujairah that does mostly oil and gas. We've got the port in Ajman, who's mostly controlled by CMA CGM. So there is a lot of trade transactions running through Dubai, breaking the traffic of in Singapore, bringing traction this way, supporting Europe, and of course the Americas. So I think we can add significant value to this market where Nigeria as a country can benefit, which will, in other words, bring FX back into the system and hopefully give the Naira some strength. So other than real estate, there is a lot that can be done in this country.
All right, Dubai is far becoming the hub of tourism globally, and this also poses some challenges, which include, the influx of people into that city. How has this impacted infrastructure in that city, and how would you say the UAE authorities handling this?
They are handling it very, very well. Like my earlier speaker spoke, this country has really embarked on a journey of progression. They're very proactive, and there's a plan which is always set, probably every 10 years. We just have the 2030 initiative that has been launched by Sheikh Mohammed, I think, early last year. Every day it's more like a construction site. There's always something happening. Road expansion, new bridges, new tunnels. We're talking about the Hyperloop. Hyperloop will take you, on a good day, you drive almost 2 hours to Abu Dhabi. With the Hyperloop, which take you just 10 minutes. So this is expanding. Now we have the Etihad Rail. It's just been launched. Etihad Rail launched last year. It's a small country for them to have a railway line, but right now it's working. People will move cargo from Dubai to Fujairah, extending even up to Qatar. They've got the plans to extend to Qatar and Kuwait. So the infrastructure, they are investing heavily on infrastructure, knowing that there's big inflow into this region, and also setting up a pace, setting up a platform to be able to handle the traffic. Technology, they've employed a lot of technology, whereby security is paramount. So as many people that bring flows into Dubai, Dubai still feels very safe. Families from Europe are coming down here. Most of our tax breaks. Also looking at that, they've projected that there will be so much inflow into the country, whereby making alternative transportation. They're talking about air taxis. In the next 2 years, we'll probably have taxis flying up in the air, cars, flying in the air as air taxis. So these are the projections, these are the steps that the country is taking to curb the inflow of visitors coming into the country, and also and there's a lot of traffic. It's becoming almost like Lagos. But then they're taking that into consideration, making new railway lines, new metro lines to ease traffic flow. So they are really investing heavily in infrastructure, and I think we as residents of this country have seen the country progress over the years and see the positive side of it. That's why we're still here today, to just take advantage of that infrastructure.
All right, since you made a bit of comparison between Dubai and Lagos in terms of traffic, let's expand the comparison. Now, for Dubai, that's relies heavily on importation. Nigeria does the same thing, but we've seen them handle that differently. So what can Nigeria learn in that aspect? It's always been said that one of the undoing of Nigerian economy is because it is import dependent, but we've seen that play out in Dubai and produce a different result. What's to learn there?
What's to learn there is the mindset. I really go back to what a friend of mine, Visu, the South African speaker normally talks about, and that is mindset. We need to change our mindset. In Dubai, you can hardly find potholes. Now, for us, potholes and power failure has become a norm. It has become a thing that we think it's okay, and we just go with it. So when you have a lot of potholes on the road, definitely it leads to traffic. And then you have little accidents. Some things, also policies that you put in place, rules. In Dubai, you don't take pictures when there's an accident, because what that does is rubberneck. A lot of people stop, take pictures, you slow down traffic, and then you now put it on social media, and you find people looking at your clips while you're driving. So you're not allowed to use your phones while you drive, otherwise you get hit with a big fine. Now, all this, at the end of the day, helps traffic flow. Now, Dubai gets concentrated. Where there's a traffic, you find diversions. The police department, the traffic department takes that extra step to have visual signs that directs traffic to say, you know what, there's a lot of traffic on this side, take alternative routes, and that eases traffic. So a lot of that goes back to mindset. We should not take things as it's okay. We're used to it, light goes out, it's okay. It's not okay, because at the end of the day, it becomes a ripple domino effect that happens, something else, then happens. So I think we have a lot to learn from countries like Dubai. I've been here for close to about 30 years. We've seen the city grow, we've seen the country grow, and we admire the leaders, because once they announce things, today they say, you know what, Sheikh Zayed Road from this exit to that exit is now 80 kilometers an hour. So when you see these signs, you have to slow down. You don't slow down, you get hit by a fine. So when you think of paying those heavy fines, then you know that it's time to, to be cautious. Yeah. So I think those are one of the measures we can take.
All right, it's interesting to know you've been in that city for 30 years. Maybe you deserve to have a chieftaincy title now. Right, that's on a lighter note. But let's look at the cost of doing business in UAE.
But I've declined that title.
I'm not sure if I could hear you. All right. Yeah, now, I succeeded in making you laugh. I wanted to do that, actually. All right. Now, let's look at the cost of doing business in Dubai, for instance, which is the point of attraction here. You see that investors, even tourists, they are more attracted to the city. Tell us, how is the cost of doing business like in that place? And what are the points of attractions to these investors and to these tourists? Could it be the cost of doing business or the business environment? And what are the things that can be imbibed in a country like Nigeria, looking at the reference point of Dubai when it comes to the business environment and the cost of doing business?
Thank you. That's a good one. Cost of doing business is very, very competitive. It's a very competitive market, a level playing ground for everybody. The country is doing everything within their power to attract investors, and not just to attract investors, to make investors stay. Example, with the new policy of the 10-year golden visa, they realized that they had to do something different. After the recession, after the COVID, a lot of people left, a lot of schools were shut down. So basically, they had to think of something. 3 years visa, 2 years visa is not just enough. It's not, there must be something more attractive to bring investors here. The country does a lot of promotion. The country advertises itself. They market themselves. They have security, which is their key. It's a very peaceful country. So basically they've reached out to all and sundry. You can set up a business with as little as $1,000. Now, they've got a setup where we call co-working spaces. If you have an idea, there's an area called Innovation Center. You come to DIFC, there's an innovation hub. You've got an idea, you pay a little bit of money, you get a license, you can run your business. You don't have to have staff. You want to have e-commerce, they let you have a license that you can operate online and market your goods while being regulated in terms of you have a department that takes care of such kind of businesses. Now, they're very hands-on, and they do encourage new innovations, new idea. For example, we've got a company in Nigeria that I've set up in Dubai that we know very well. It's a fintech company, AeroPay, for example. They're doing something different, offer what we used to in Nigeria, which is new to Dubai. So that's really something that the government wants to know, like, okay, fine, we have banks here. So what are you bringing differently? They say, well, we're bringing what you don't have. Now, in other words, you're adding value. So they welcome this kind of innovations, this kind of idea. What MoneyPoint is doing today, if that is replicated in Dubai, Dubai will be happy to receive them. So in business sense, there's a lot going on that they encourage. We just finished the Arab Health exhibitions. Everybody from around the world came. Right before that, there was Gulf Food. Everybody attended. Now, before that, again, there was COP28. COP28, this is the biggest and the best COP28 ever. Now, a lot of people, raised their comments about it. So Dubai as a state, as a city, of course, Abu Dhabi being the capital, they all now work together to promote the region as it may. Just last weekend, we had a investors forum, entrepreneur forum, which was in Sharjah, the next Emirates. And that was heavily funded by the government of Sharjah, that attracted some big names. So what we can learn or take away from this is, of course, security is key to attract people to come in, and then stability. In the economy of this country, for example, the currency has been pegged to the dollar for the last 30 years. It's been 3.66 since I've been in this country. So that is something that is investors look at. But other than that, it is the only country where I've lived. I've been to a lot of countries. It is the only country where you sit at a table, you find 20 people at that table, and all 20 are from different nationalities, and they all get along very well. Mexicans, Venezuelans, Vietnamese, Nigeria, South African, Brazilians, Finnish, we're all sitting on one table having lunch and smiling, and everybody's doing business as usual. So that's one good thing I have to give to them. That's what we don't have.
Okay, you've rolled out lots of incentives for investors, but let's look at one. Does Dubai provide, or the United Arab Emirates provide access to credit for non-indigents?
Yes, they do. They have a very good credit system. Just like the United States, they've just started, they call it Etihad Bureau of Standards. So they do credit ratings, and as long as you've got your Emirates ID, you looked at an official resident of the country, then you have your credit cards, you have your typical loans, you can access mortgages. We have new fintech companies coming up, just like one called Tabi. Tabi will give you what is common in Nigeria anyways, but here it's buy now, pay later. You use Tabi, you can buy food, you can buy furniture, you can buy whatever you want, and you can pay in 6 installments. That comes almost automatic. Having lived here over the years, I'm not a credit card person. I don't believe in credit, but for those that do, you have access to that. As a business owner, you can have easy access up to 5 million dirhams, which is about $1.5 million, if your papers are in place. That can go up to $50 million. An individual, you can get as much as 250,000 dirhams, which is close to about $60,000 to $70,000. Which you can use. They have two platforms. You have a personal loan and you have a credit card, so you can access either both, and also a car loan. So having access to credit is there as long as you're disciplined, you have good credit score, you can access their loans.
We understand that globally interest rates are high, but these loans that you've talked about that are provided for non-indigents in the UAE, at what rates does it go for? What is the rate attached to it?
Well, one good thing here is, which we all take advantage of, to be fair to the country, it's an Islamic country, so Sharia compliance is on the paramount. So that taking into consideration, the interest is well controlled, even though in some cases it's not as mentioned as interest, it's called profit. It's really within the range, quite reasonable ranges from 2 to 5 to 6%, can go as high as 10, depending on your qualifications and your credit score. So interest is not really, that high as we experience in Nigeria, where it goes up to 20, 22%. That would be ludicrous in this market. So as far as interest goes and profits, it's very reasonable, and
Okay, let's look at as a way of handling the inflation. Now, you mentioned earlier that handling a bill of at least $1,000 for monthly expenses, personal monthly expenses, and between $3,000 for a family of 4 in Dubai is going to be hard on Africans and Asians living there. So in Nigeria, when issues like this happen, you find that there is a call for wage bump. Do you see that happening in Dubai as a way to handle this? How do you think the United Arab Emirates government is going to handle the rise in inflation in the country?
Well, that is across board. It's not just United Arab Emirates. They're doing their bit in terms of trying to curb that. Mostly for the indigents, they've got subsidies. For us as foreign expatriates in the country, again, lifestyle plays a major role. With the situation in our region with Yemen and the tension between Israel, it has definitely affected cost of living because most shipping lines coming this way, the freight has increased. The country is dependent almost 80% on imports. We have a few factories here manufacturing, so definitely they are doing their bit. A lot of controls are in place whereby you don't, inflation is not as, let me say, you can never have 100% inflation here. Inflation rate probably slightly between 2, 3, 4% increase, mainly because, like I said, the tensions in the region. But other than that, the crazy prices that we'll experience in other regions, you won't have that here. So it's a bit controlled. They do have the municipality that makes their rounds. We do have announcements monthly on the fuel increase and why it's increased. So you have that on the news. Other than that, I think it's basically following the international trend. Again, currency plays a very good advantage here, whereby it's been pegged. So you can feel a bit of the pinch. For example, last month, we got tomatoes, which is one of the cheapest stuff here. Tomatoes going for 3 dirhams a kilo, and now as high as 6 dirhams a kilo, or let's say 5 dirhams. So it's almost like, 60% increase, but then it suddenly drops again. So it all depends on the freight of getting the tomatoes here. So I think inflation is quite controlled, if I'm allowed to use that word.
All right, interesting. What a way to wrap up this conversation. Know that you are the right mind for this kind of conversation. 30 years is not a joke. So thank you for your time and your thought on the cost of living in UAE, and also giving us the business opportunities, an idea, painting a picture of the business environment in UAE. We must thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And to cap this off, just like you said, I have to say this: we were one of the few that brought the Nigerian embassy to this country. We used to be in Kuwait, and I think in the early 90s with Ambassador Abdullahi Gwari, Kuwait, we made it a point of duty to ensure that we had an embassy here. And thanks to him, he made it happen. So we opened the first Nigerian embassy in the UAE. So that is something that we pride ourselves with because we saw the growing demand and the inflow of Nigerians beginning to come here. I mean, I must tell you, when I came here, we were just about 20 Nigerians in this country. Today, we have over 1,000. So, yeah, so we were proud and happy with the developments, and just hope for more mutual working relationship on a G2G basis. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think I'm going to join Femi in this call that you should be given the chieftaincy title in Dubai, at least amongst in the Nigerian community, having stayed there for 30 years and pushed to have the Nigerian embassy in the UAE. That's some achievement, and you received an applause here. Dr. Dausa was clapping for you while you said that, and I think we'll join in doing that. And so, well done. We hope that you and the others continue to represent Nigeria very well in the United Arab Emirates. Thank you for being a part of Oil Exchange.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Dausa, he said that the price of tomatoes in the UAE has doubled. Do you see that as an opportunity for maybe Nigeria?
Well, it could be. It could be, but they also have invested a lot in farms. There's a vertical farm in UAE where they are producing tomatoes. Okay. Incidentally.
But
so
it
most of the
cannot
food,
be too much now.
Yeah,
Like
it cannot. Yeah, of course they are not the same really. Having organic tomatoes taken from Nigeria to the UAE, it's a big business. A whole lot of people are doing that in the UAE, and of course, you know, you can't joke with Nigerian recipe. And when you get to the United Arab Emirates and you see all Nigerian restaurants and see foreigners savoring our food, so
I imagine the jollof rice made with Nigeria tomatoes.
Oh my God! So it's all there and over all the places, and I think it's something we can leverage on. We just do hope that the issue with the Emirates airline eventually is over and resolved, so that the portals for Nigerians to move freely between Nigeria and UAE is at optimal level as it used to be.
One of the talking points from Prince Frank is the disposition to infrastructural development in UAE. What are lessons for a country like Nigeria? You know, it seems to us that some of those states do not have a master plan or prepare for the expansion to come. Well, you have a situation in UAE now where there's a master plan and there are preparations being made for expansions that could arise. What should be the takeaway for Nigeria and some of the states you have here as regards the issue of urbanization and the need to have a master plan?
You see, you just heard from Frank talking about the leadership in the UAE who sit down and think solution. While they were looking at building roads, for example, the leaders sat with the economic team and asked, we want to build massive road that is connecting Dubai to international city. This is the amount. How will it be financed? What options are available? Now, they looked at the options. The first option is to look for loan. Otherwise, you put a budget on it. Otherwise, you look for grants or PPP, where you ask other people to bring money and invest in it, and they give you money. And then the leader said, any other option? Because we have seen all these four not working. What else can work? And somebody said, well, we can also try to toll the already existing road and use it to build a new road. And then he fought for that option. So they started the Souq, the Clean Road Project. What they did, you hear talk about police diversion of routes. Alternative routes were created, and the clean roads were told electronic toll gates. The cameras are up. All the 1.5 million vehicles in the UAE has electronic tags. So as soon, and wallets are created for all the vehicles. So as soon as you drive past where a Souq camera is, the money automatically is deducted from your wallet. There's nobody issuing receipts. There is no human being manning that gate. And the money flies into the government's account, separate account, not the CRF fund. No, it's Souq fund. It's made for road. And over a year, they rake in over 800 million US dollars. So this money is channeled to build a second road. Now, when you build a second road, what do? You put another Souq.
So you keep duplicating.
Yes, replicating itself. And you can imagine, and it's always going to be, if you enter a taxi in the UAE and you get where the Souq is, the toll take it from you, and then the bill is passed to the passenger from the driver, from the ROTA vehicles. So if it's a private vehicle, you bear the brunt. So, and the monies are not too much. It's just 40 dirhams.
Per day or per time that you go
Per
through
time
the
you
road?
passes through the Souq. But if you don't want to use the Souq, you have an alternative route to use, which of course you may spend more time because of traffic and the rest of it. So this was a creative measure, and this brought in revenue. And now, Souq Fund in the UAE, they don't even know where to put the money anymore. So they are building PPP in other countries and making more revenue to themselves. So it's not a rocket science. Dubai just wanted to model France and Singapore. That was all. And they succeeded in modeling them. And we have another Singapore in Dubai. It's as simple. All Nigeria need to do is to sit down and ask ourselves, what do we really want? Is it politics we want or development? And once we can answer that question, every other thing will just be fine.
I'm impressed at how much they've developed a credit economy. And Prince Frank talked about how the rates between 2 to 10%, not really interest rate, but profit, what you pay back on whatever loan given to you. So this act like a buffer at times like this, helping to control inflation. How feasible is it to achieve a system like that in Nigeria or even in Africa widely, a credit economy?
It's just our hypocrisy. The Islam we have in UAE is the one we have in Nigeria. Just imagine that the northern region or Kano City. Kano is a trading hub for almost all Sahel. And imagine that those who govern Kano can sit down to replicate. Because all that UAE is doing is they are using the Islamic model of banking. The Muslim states in Nigeria can also employ it and use the riba banking, that is interest-free banking, project in the north to attract investment to those regions. But you see, like Frank said, for you to be able to achieve that, you have to create an ecosystem where people can feel safe. Even within Nigeria now, if they send your daughter to go to Kano for a youth corps service, you'll be walking to moving back to elsewhere because the environment, people are not feeling safe. And this is where all the traditional rulers in the north need to sit down and ask themselves a very basic question. The problem of insecurity in the north is not something that is beyond what the northerners can resolve if they take politics out of it. And then you can have that environment where business can thrive and things can be done well.
All right, it's been wonderful talking about the United Arab Emirates, looking at the inflation rate there, how it's impacting the country, and how it's been handled. What are the opportunities for those living there, businesses there, and of course, investors in other continents? These have been the thrust of a conversation this morning. I would thank Dr. Idaosa Osamanze, who's been with us here in the studio, and as well Prince Frank Onede, who joined us virtually. We'll move on to another matter after this break. Just stay tuned.
The National Theatre, Igomu, built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, FESTAC, in 1977. The theatre holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged Festac 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Expert Stroll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theater complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of large green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, Souq Enlightenment. Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamans.
Still a deficit budget, we're still going to borrow as much as up to 7-9 trillion.
We have a 24-hour rescue team always on standby. So the first thing that is done is for the...
As Nigerians, we must realize that government does not thrive based on what one man is doing at the seat of power.
If I had my way, I would say let's go back and bring back Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, indeed, it's our obligation on this program to shape policy and advance development with our conversation. And now we're taking a switch to look at the use of foreign currencies for domestic transactions in Nigeria. This has been of concern to the Central Bank of Nigeria in recent times. It is often said here that when dollar sneezes, the naira catches cold. This has been the situation for some time now. What has been the effort of the central bank in curtailing this kind of development? That will be the thrust of our conversation now. To provide a better perspective to this, we've been joined also by in-house analyst. We have Sam Oruwije here with us this morning. Good morning. Glad to have you join us on Early Exchange.
Good morning, Femi. My pleasure to be here.
Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Blessing.
It's good to see you here today. It's been a while.
I don't think so.
It will always
Not
look
so
like
long,
that.
but it's been a while.
My pleasure to be here anyway. Thank you.
How was your weekend?
Beautiful.
Oh, good to know. Good to know. So that means we're in for a wonderful time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, let's look at this trend, which has been of concern to the Central Bank of Nigeria. In fact, a circular has to be issued in that regard recently, which is not the first time. The use of dollars and foreign currencies for domestic transactions in Nigeria, despite the fact that the CBN has maintained severally that the naira remains legal tender, but you have this preference for foreign currencies in Nigeria. Talk to us. Why do you think you have this kind of development? How did we get here?
Well, personally, I don't share that perspective. I know there are few businesses that like to collect dollars. I think it is the responsibility of the regulatory authority to make sure that transactions are done in the legal tender of our country. So whether some people do dollar transaction, I think it will be a failure on the part of the Central Bank of Nigeria and all the allied agencies that are responsible within the monetary framework regime of the country. So I don't see any reason. I've been to other climes, I don't want to mention country-specific term, where you make transactions and you even have dollar option. They will always ask you to convert your dollars into the local currency to initiate your transaction. So I don't know why it should be different here. So if the central government, Central Bank of Nigeria feel that this is the issues, I think they should find a way to track down those who do transactions in dollars, so that that can serve as a deterrent to people who demand foreign exchange to do local transactions. Those are my personal views.
All right, apart from the official channel when people want to make transactions paying with dollars, there's also been the trend of spraying dollars at parties, even parties done within the country. Now, this high demand for the use of the dollar, do you find it associated with a class thing other than a means of transaction or a legal tender issue?
For people spraying money at parties, there's some cultural imperative when it comes to, but then the central bank in the recent time with the EFCC have often said that it's not necessary to spray those kind of money. But then if there's a regulatory framework in place, I think those agencies should find a way. I understand, I read in the paper recently that somebody was sentenced to sentenced for spraying dollars. I don't know how true is that, but well, socially, yes, maybe it can be a class thing depending on the perspective at which you are looking at it. But I think it's just a cultural thing that people spray money at parties. But then we should frown at spraying foreign money in our local party. If you must spray money, it should be our local currency. If you are culturally banned to do those kind of stuff in parties. But then if the government say it's not good, then I think we should stop that. Why can't you just put money in an envelope and hand it over to the people at the party? I think that's more dignifying in my view.
Don't you think if you look at the exchange rate of the dollar to a naira, for instance, you know, you can guess the figure, which I don't want to talk about it now, but if you look at the exchange rate of naira to dollar, wouldn't it be a difficult task for the CBN to curb this trend if looking at the exchange rates and the kind of value you get when you store your assets in these foreign currencies? Don't you think it would be a tough one for CBN to curb this trend and stop Nigerians from, you know, patronizing or putting pressure on the nairas, demanding?
If I understand you correctly, storing your money in dollars vis-a-vis using your money as a local currency.
Looking at the
I don't really get the drift.
Other foreign currency, looking at the exchange rate, the value now compared to naira.
Would that make people demand for foreign currency in terms of local transaction? Is that the question?
Yes. Wouldn't that be a tough one for the CBN
I don't
to
think
cover
so.
if that's a reality to live
You have
with?
opportunities of people having a domiciliary account where they can earn money from abroad, and those monies are in dorm account. But those money, once they leave the domiciliary account for local transaction, they should be converted to local money for that exchange, irrespective of whatever the exchange as it is as of today. So if the government say you are allowed to have a dorm account where you have foreign currency in your account, but if you must use those currency for local transaction, then they must be converted into the local currency.
Let me add this. Are you aware there are employees who earn their salaries in dollars in Nigeria?
If they are expatriate workers, it depends on how those
Some
salaries...
of them are not.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. That would be against the Nigerian labor law, and the Ministry of Labor and Productivity must close in on those companies as quickly as possible. But if you are employed as an expatriate worker, you're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
All right. To rephrase, because when Femi was talking about people leaving their money denominated in dollars, it's become like a trend right now where it seemed like an investment plan or an inflation-proof plan where people choose to save in dollars rather than save in naira. Is that putting some strain on the dollar in terms of increasing the demand?
I don't think so. How many people can really save in dollars? If you look at the ratio, the population, I don't think so, even though there are no basic statistics to defend that position. How many people really can save in dollar? That's a million naira question. Nevertheless, those who have the capacity to save with an investment option, if they have the capacity to save in dollars, why not? But my submission this morning is that even if you have your money in dollars and you must spend them within the domestic environment, then you must convert those monies to spend in naira. So there's nothing wrong if you have an investment option that is dominated in dollars, but when you earn your money, once it comes into the local jurisdiction, then you convert your money and spend in the local, unless you're doing a foreign exchange transaction where you need to transfer money by dollar, and then the bank within those framework can earn their own commission, and that money still remain within the domestic environment.
Talking about converting, now when people want to convert to the local currency, the first point of call now is the Bureau de Change operator, or those who exchange currencies along the streets. So for the Abuja Bureau de Change operators saying they're shutting down, how much of impact do you see that having? Do you see it becoming a nationwide thing where from Abuja, those in Lagos, those in other states begin to shut down because there isn't enough forex to continue business?
Well, I'll look at that from two perspectives. First, if they are trying to shut down their operation, that would be a business decision that they are making. So if they think it's in their best interest to shut down their operation, so may it be.
Wouldn't it have
on the
implication?
other hand, no, I'm just trying to make a point.
Okay.
There is a business decision, so if they want to shut down, that's their own personal. On the other hand, is it a threat to the government that if they shut down, then the pressure on the dollar will become more problematic to the point that maybe they will beg them to come back to. The argument is neither here or there. So if they make a decision, if they think it's in their business interest, let them shut down. And maybe that will help to close the gap. I don't know, with the floating rate that currently exists, if they choose not to operate, where the central bank should just withdraw their license, and let's see whether that can help. These are my personal views for now.
All right, let me point your attention to the provision of the CBN Act as regards this. I'll go to section 20, subsection 5, we say, forbids anyone from refusing to accept the naira as a means of payment. Shall, the word shall was used, shall be guilty of an offense and liable in conviction to a fine of 50,000 naira or 6 months imprisonment. Don't you think this just looked like a slap in the wrist?
I don't think so. Maybe at the time that law was made, 50,000 must be a lot of money. So what we should be clamoring for at this particular point in time, to what extent can we review that provision of the law and put the option to a bigger decision in terms of what you pay vis-a-vis the fine option. But to what extent has the central bank be able to use this instrument to punish people so that it can serve as a deterrent? So I think that should be the conversation, that should be the narrative. 50,000, yes, small, but then we can review that so that the amount of fine that you pay can be increased. Then people should be sent to jail. If I was a judge sitting, I would prefer the option of jail rather than the option of fine, so that people can spend their money. And that was the point I was speaking to, that if the regulatory framework is there, to what extent do we use this law? And I think that's the challenge that we have in our environment. We have the laws, but to what extent do we use the law to correct the anomalies in the society?
All right, talking about using laws to correct anomalies, some time ago, the CBN used to supply Bureau de Change operators with forex. So once that stopped, they had to source theirs. And we've seen how much of impact that policy has had. But at a time like this, in spite of looting the naira, and even the BDCs still struggling to get forex. Do you think it is about time to revisit that policy?
I think beyond the policy framework, I think I was speaking elsewhere recently in this station about the propensity for imported items. And this is why we're struggling so much. And I think we need to change spending by buying locally made products. That will reduce the stress on the dollar. I think these are conversations that we must sustain as citizens. Let's see how we can patronize made in Nigerian goods so that this penchant for foreign imported item that put a strain on this exchange regime can be reduced minimally, in my view.
Does Nigeria have enough local substitutes for many of the products it imports?
We do have. It's an orientation issue. It's not that you can close your border completely in terms of imported item, but there are certain things that you bring into the country, strangely to me, that are not necessary. I hear that people make soups, Nigerian soups elsewhere, and they are being imported back into Nigeria. That sounds funny, but these are serious things that we must frown out.
Okay. Maybe in that case, it's the expertise of the chef they're importing and not necessarily the soup itself. Well, we'll take a break, and after this time, we'll continue the conversation. Stay tuned.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Marcy Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, Souq Enlightenment. Morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamans.
Still a deficit budget, we're still going to borrow as much as up to 7-9 trillion.
We have a 24-hour rescue team always on standby. So the first thing that is done is for the...
As Nigerians, we must realize that government does not thrive based on what one man is doing at the seat of power.
If I had my way, I would say let's go back and bring back Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, we're still looking at the issue of foreign currencies dominating domestic transactions in Nigeria, which has been of concern to the Central Bank of Nigeria. To provide another perspective to this, we're being joined by a chartered accountant. Let's see what you have to say about this perspective as an expert in this area. We're being joined by Cheson Okunade, who is also an economist and a business analyst. Sheson, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange this morning.
Good morning to my brother. Good morning to fellow anchor and the guests in the house, and to all our viewers globally connected to us this beautiful Monday morning.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be your host, and we must say thank you for honoring our invitation. Now, let's look at the use of foreign currencies for domestic transactions in Nigeria, which has necessitated the latest circular being issued by the CBN. How do you react to these, and why do you think we have this kind of development, if I may put it this way, the dollarization of the Nigeria economy?
Thank you very much. I think the government failed to address certain issues when it started, and it got over bloated and beyond what they could not manage, and currently had burst their face, and we started looking for way to mend fences. This did not just started now. It's been on where most of the things that we do within the country are actually being dollarized. You want to, first and foremost, you discover that as a nation, we are not producing anything, and everything that we make use of are being imported. Years where we have companies here tapped into our God-given natural resources to produce certain things were gone. And basically all the things we now consume, we now use, are being imported. And that on its own puts so much pressure on it. At a time, people come into the country and they do everything. We heard of even people paying rent in dollars. And you ask yourself, why would that be? They said because of the influx of dollar that they want to receive. And you ask, is that going into the bank or into individuals' pockets? You see instances where people traveled and they are supposed to retire back funds that they bought from the CBN while traveling, and decide to sell to the black market on in order to make margin. It's these are major problems that we started with and has metamorphosed and crystallized into a bigger problem that is facing us as a country as we speak. First and foremost, I feel area of address should even see how we can encourage business environment in such a way that we can start domesticating the things that we are importing. And government needs to take the lead. And what do I mean? We have a crude oil, which seems to be a major source of income. What are we doing in such a way that the finished product from that particular natural resources that we have as a source of revenue is actually being processed locally to reduce the pressure that we have on foreign exchange? So if you must put the accusing fingers to the citizen, then the government must be intentional in making sure that our refinery works, and that so much that is actually being used in bringing in the finished product that they feel that they give an open window to the independent marketer or even NNPC, we can start having them, having access to them locally. Also, we should be able to bring out policy that will be consistent in such a way that the multinationals can have confidence in investing in some of the things that can give a lot to the country, to the citizen of the country, as against them leaving the country, creating high level of unemployment. And one address of that is the area of security. A lot of people are really not having that confidence that their citizens are protected when they come into the country to carry out their technical experts to support the growth of our economy, and thereafter reduce the FDIs that we are talking about, and not just bringing them in, those that are in existence, are actually going to the to the neighboring country. And when you transact business with some of those people, you discover that you are even using foreign exchange to do it. So I think I will have to say that the government needs to be intentional with certain policies in such a way that it will encourage local production, building the confidence of the citizen. You see, for we average Nigeria, we want to consume Nigerian rice because bringing in foreign rice, I want to promote our own. I want to eat ofada that is locally produced. But you discover that because there is no enabling environment to support the production, the cost of producing those things locally are more expensive than those that are actually being imported. And the businessman will have to sort out for the aspect of importing that goods that can be produced locally, which is also another problem that we need to just address if we must reduce the pressure that we have on our foreign exchange.
Okay, as you talked about domesticating some of the importations or the imports that Nigeria does, which increases the demand for the dollar. But some time ago, there was the plan for currency swap with China, in that Nigeria does at least 20% of trade with China annually. Do you see that being a short-term solution while Nigeria works on manufacturing most of the products it imports?
I'm not an advocate of that Naira swap. Why? Why are we promoting other nations against our own? Fine, we have good business relationship with them because they have strong currency. They built their economy. We have everything it entails for us as a nation to build our own in such a way that people too will want to swap Naira for their currency. The natural resources are endowed here, but we are not managing it the way it should be. The human capital, when you talk about the 4 M's in economics or in factors of production, the materials are here. The human capital, which is the manpower, is actually endowed here. Intellects are out here, but we are not enhancing them. The finances too are out here that we can actually capitalize on if we manage some of those things out there. I feel that the government should be intentional in making sure that we do our own, satisfy ourselves, and see how we can, start giving some of those things, even if not to the so-called Asian country, at least our neighboring nation who count so much on us. I'm sure you know the role Nigeria play as a nation in Africa. Even in West Africa, we are giant in ECOWAS, in AU, we play prominent role. Why can't we be intentional in such a way that we will tap into their resources, produce those things here locally? Let's even go through that hardship in making sure that we know that in the shortest possible time, we will be liberated from this slavery of relying on foreign exchange, on depending on other nations. What give you the impression that the challenges we are facing with dollar, we will not face it with the China currency? Then we'll move again and say, let's go to India. From there, we say, no, let's go to Europe. That's not the way to go. It should be intentional act of developing those things that we have locally. The beginning might be tough, but the end result of it on the long run will be beneficiary to an average citizen, as again running from one country to the other to be exchanging our currency with them.
All right, now let's look at the decision by the president to float the Naira with the motive that he wants the market forces to determine the true value of the Naira. Now, given the result, or where Naira has found itself now, will you consider that decision to be strategic?
I will tell you outright no. Because you ask yourself that the regulators are not doing that which is needful. When you even inject some of this money, the forces of demand and supply are not actually working in our favor, because majority of the people that are demanding for these currencies, the foreign exchange in question, are not for production. You can imagine people travel for health that they can even have access to here in the country, and they are requesting for dollar. And my president currently is on a private visit. Are we spending the Naira where he has visited? some of the funds that are injected into circulation are in the hands of the elite that are not producing anything locally, but for business trip, for pleasure, and even basic things that we can have in here. So for me, I think the regulators just need to be intentional in making sure that even when you are actually availing some of these funds that you claim that you are injecting into the system, it goes into the right hand of people that are having production. Business owners are resorting into black market as against having direct access even from the CBN, because the bureaucratic setting would have actually skyrocketed the cost at which you are going to do it. You might not even be able to fulfill obligation to your client or even to your customers. So I feel they should be intentional rather than saying that the forces of demand and supply, those demanding for the currency are not actually demanding for it in terms of producing. Those that are in need of it are not having the access to it. So I'm not an advocate to say that the forces of demand and supply will definitely work to bring down the cost of that foreign exchange. The CBN should be intentional to divert and give those funds to those that are in line of production, manufacturing, to enhance some of the things that they need to bring in on short-term basis, while we look at empowering those domestic companies to produce those things locally so that we can minimize this aspect of saying demand and supply. When the demand is no longer for production and it's for pleasure, these are part of the things that we have. We've heard about the injection of over 500 billion, and you ask yourself, who are the people that will have access to it? It is still the same elite politicians that are going on health tourism, going on vacation, going on educational or wherever, that will have access to it, and not the manufacture or the production arm of the economy that really needs some of this foreign exchange that we are talking about. So the demand and supply is a no for me. It's really not regulating anything, rather it's compounding our problem.
All right, so I need to just make a recommendation in the interim. What should happen, a reversal or what should happen right now to Forex to address the situation?
First and foremost, the CBN should be up and doing in what they do in monitoring the activities that goes on. There are several activities that are going on that are not properly being monitored. And we can say this for foreign exchange. I talked about it even with our own currency locally. I don't know, last time you have access to cash via the ATM, it's become a scarce commodity. So if your currency is not available for you to spend in your country, how are they even regulating the foreign exchange to make sure that those that need or have access to it are actually the ones that are having access to that foreign exchange? So first and foremost, I would recommend that the regulators, which is the CBN, should be up and doing, track activities the way it should be. There are regulations by the NDIC telling you that if you withdraw certain amount of money, it will be flagged. If some of these things are actually being followed to letter, monitor how some of these foreign exchange are actually being spent. Who are the people that are having access to it? Is it because I know somebody is CPN, I have access and utilize it for things that are not even productive to the economy? We should start flagging some of those things and punish individuals that are actually diverting it. I saw the CBN coming out last week that the majority of the banks are having excess funds that they are utilizing it for their gain. We have said that times with that number, a lot of the robust profits after tax by some of these banks. And we asked them, how many of these have you actually impacted the business owner, the SMEs? You make so much profit. By statutorily, there are certain amounts that are separated out for the SMEs. How many of them are having access to the funds that you claim that you're actually having from your robust profit after tax that you have actually given to the SMEs? Regulators must monitor these activities in such a way that funds that are meant for the right people, they have access to it. And with that, people will know that it's no longer business as usual. As we speak, people have access to
we're out of time. We thank you so much for your
that
brilliant contributions on the show this morning. We'll have you another time and we'll look more at some of these issues. But in the meantime, we do hope the appropriate authorities are listening and taking necessary action.
Thank you very much for having me, and I wish our viewers the very best of.
My name is Veronica Eze.
My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep
watching Souq
News TV.
The best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found this route in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the life different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to Souq News. You don't touch that dial.